On today's episode of the off-season player review train, we take a stop and look at Alex Killorn.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we are continuing our off-season player review segments, and we are looking at Alex Killorn. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to this podcast and go ahead and go back to our previous episode as we spoke last night about Tanner Jeannot, the interesting season, if you even want to call 20 games with the Tampa Bay Lightning as somewhat of a season, because I don't count his previous games with the Nashville Predators. We talk about that. And today we're going to be talking about, asking the hard questions like we did on that episode with Alex Killorn, because this is a very interesting situation, a situation in which both sides need to come to the table this offseason. As we all know, Alex Killorn is a unrestricted free agent, and after coming off a resurgence of a year, the question is going to be on everybody's minds going into this summer is going to be, where does Killorn go? Where do the Lightning go? And there's a lot of things, a lot of factors that are going to play into this. But obviously the big one, as it normally is where do we agree on money? And before we get to that hard conversation, which we'll talk about in the second half of the show, I want to talk about Killorn's season, what he did very well, what we saw from him. And so before we look at Alex Killorn's season, this regular season, we have to take a look back at what he did in his previous years, what we did with Tanner Jeannot. But Killorn has been a very interesting player to watch over the last couple of years, just because when you look at his numbers, he has he plays the game a certain way to where, quite honestly, when I was looking over his numbers after the regular season, before we got into the playoffs, and as just even when the season was going along, it kind of feels, and maybe this is just me, maybe this is a lot of people, maybe a lot of Lightning fans feel this way to a certain extent. It feels like him getting to 27 goals and 64 points kind of snuck up on us. There was games where he did well and really was the lifeblood of this team, and then there's other games, as what we saw in last year's playoffs, where he really just wasn't there at all. There was some nights, especially on the road, where I actually questioned if the Lightning even brought him on the road trip. And you look at his last couple of seasons, 2021 to 2021, 22, in the shortened season. Actually, you know what? If you want to look at the season, the COVID shortened season, he had 26 goals and 49 points. In the 56 game season, he had 15 goals and 33 points. So you kind of look at that as him sort of being on track for basically hovering around the 25 goal mark, which I think is a good place of expectation to have him at, really. And then last season, 82 games, 25 goals, 59 points. More of the same from him. You're sort of starting to see him kind of the last couple of years, starting in 19, really start to get it together. And then this season plays a full season, which, by the way, I think it's very underplayed in the NHL these days that a player plays 82 games. I don't think that players get enough recognition for that. Not because that's not some, it's not like the NBA or Major League Baseball where players are hurt for an extended period of times or sit out of games, more so like what we see in the NBA. But I think the way the game is played, where it's just so fast, it's so physical. I think it's as physical it's been in a while. I think the players now are just so much faster and stronger, to where there's so little room for error, where and a lot of it is just, it's just randomness of the violence of the game. Catching a slap shot in a bad spot, or getting hit weirdly along the boards could easily put you out for 10 to 15, even 20 games, depending on the severity of the injury. And for someone like Alex Killorn, who pretty much makes a living at this point in front of the net, we will see him a little bit further out at times, but I think his bread and butter is really in front of the net, cleaning up the mess, and nothing wrong about those kind of goals. Some people sometimes have issues with that. I've seen at certain points during the regular season where Killorn would score a goal and then an opposing fan would be like, "That's a garbage goal." Well, a goal is a goal. So, but I really like how, and we talk about it a lot on this show, how sometimes overperforming or underperforming in the playoffs could very well dictate how the next season goes. And especially a player at this point in his career, like Alex Killorn, who has dealt with the bumps and bruises here and there throughout his career, but has played through it. In the playoffs, like I said, just really was not there in terms of making an impact on this team in last year's playoff run. That was a big talking point coming into this season. Are we gonna see more of that? Is this sort of maybe the start of the downturn, or the kind of the productiveness that we will see as players age, and the wear and tear that Killorn gets? But listen, he came in, like I said, unassumingly, or really, there really wasn't that much hype around it. I feel, just because I guess a lot of it had to do with just the way he plays the game, other than the fact that Braden Point was having a phenomenal career season, as well as Nikita Kucherov just being just otherworldly as always. I think that this was the best possible scenario for Alex Killorn in terms of somewhat of a bounce back season. Whenever a player, though, gets kind of close to like those nice rounded numbers, as he did, only 3 away from 30, you would have liked to see him at least get 3 more, just so it just looks nicer in the stat sheet and something more to hang your hat on. But like I said, there was times, I said it with Brandon Hagel, and I'll say it with Killorn. There was times throughout the course of this season where the Lightning on any given night just didn't show up or struggled early on. I mean, I'm not going to get too in depth and with the issues that this team had. We all know what they did and didn't do. But at the end of the day, you always need someone to come up and step up for you on any given night. And some nights it was Brandon Hagel, and some nights was Alex Killorn. And I really think that that was what this team really needed. And whether or not it was him actually scoring the goal, having something to do with the play in terms of just keeping the puck in the zone, or being able to handle the puck and clean up on the boards off a rebound and keep the puck in the zone. I really think that that was a big difference maker sometimes, especially when the Lightning really needed it. Now, having said that, now we're talking about the negatives of the season that was most likely, if we're looking at the last 3-4 seasons, probably his best statistically, in my opinion. The issue with him, like I said, he did, as some players had, and it wasn't just a Killorn issue, it was more so a team issue. The issue I had with Alex Killorn this season, which if he comes back next year, depending on the money, I will have some sort of issue with it. I mean, we'll talk about all that in the second part of this episode, but we got to see more consistency from him in terms of, he can't just disappear for a couple of games and then reemerge as the hero. I'm not saying that he's doing that intentionally, that he's taking games off. Absolutely not. I'm just saying that, especially with the way this team is headed, still in a good place, but still very much going to have their struggles ahead of them. You definitely need to be on your A game on a nightly basis. And I firmly believe if Alex Killorn is consistent and is able to put up the performances on a nightly basis, like what we saw when he did actually show up, he could very well surpass the 30 goal mark. And I think that is something that he should definitely strive for, especially as he goes into a season where he'll be turning 34. Well, he'll be turning 34 before the season, so he'll be going into the season 34 years old. So kind of almost to that big 35 number, which I think for some players, for the superstars, it really doesn't affect them to a certain extent. I think for guys like Killorn who play a very physical game in front, I think that is somewhat of a daunting number, especially for a player who is now a UFA and could possibly make some money if he decides to leave Tampa Bay. So we'll talk about all of that. What does that mean? What is the right number for Killorn? What is the right number for Tampa Bay? Is it better for him to go and test the free agent market, or is it better for him to just get this done as soon as possible and stay in Tampa Bay? We'll talk about all that and more. But first, I'm going to talk about our friends over at eBay Motors. Now, if you haven't heard about eBay Motors, you got to go ahead and check them out. Now, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You can be sure every part you need fits right. That's the first time, okay? No second time, no third time, no fourth time, the first time. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop on eBay Motors, and with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it is easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We are available on YouTube as well. And if you're listening to us, we are available wherever podcasts, like I said, any platform, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever. We're there and we're free. And go ahead and follow me on Twitter at DenkyDank, DENKYD8NK. We're talking about Alex Killorn today on our player review segment. And really, this was the part of the episode where I'm not really looking forward to going through this offseason. I like the excitement of free agency, especially with the Lightning, where they could kind of go out and get a little bit creative with it. It's always nice to kind of bring back the guys and not have to worry about contracts when everybody's locked up. And I feel like, as much as we want to celebrate the season and look back fondly on what Alex Killorn accomplished this season, like I said, probably his best season of his career statistically, it definitely complicates things for the Tampa Bay Lightning, given not that their lives are already complicated enough with cap constraints and question marks abound and the defensive combinations and their and everything that all the options that are surrounding Ross Colton, and then all the things like we said on the last episode with Tanner Jeannot. It's a very unfortunate situation we find ourselves with Alex Killorn, because listen, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve money. He doesn't deserve a big time contract. He definitely played well enough to warrant something possibly in the 5.5 mil range, maybe even 6, depending on where you're going. The NHL free agency market isn't as luxurious as one would have hoped a couple years ago before COVID happened. Maybe if he was at a top of the line like we saw a couple of years ago with Johnny Gaudreau, he got a big time contract. Obviously, he was the top free agent at the time. Killorn, not so much. I think he'll definitely be one of the guys that a lot of people will keep an eye on. But as much as the career that the season that he had plays in his favor, where he could go to Tampa Bay, he could go to JBV and Co and say, listen, I dropped nearly 30 goals this year. I had close to 65 points. I played all 82 games. I was one of the top players on this team, and Julian Brees-Boston, I think everybody in the room will 100% agree with that. My thing, as I look at Alex Killorn, if I'm Julian Brees-Boston and I'm sitting across the table from him and his agent, and we're looking to find a happy medium in order to bring this guy back to Tampa for the rest of his career, I'm going to sit there and be honest with him, because I think Alex Killorn at this point in his career and his life kind of knows when he's beaten. I'm not saying that the Lightning have ran him through the mud before, but I'm sure that, at this point he will know BS when he hears it. So the Lightning need to be honest with him, and I'm sure they will. But if I'm the GM, what I'm saying, Alex, is listen, been a vital part of this franchise since you came here. You won two cups with us. You're getting better with age. The last 4 years have been your best by far. You everything that you said about your season is absolutely correct. You were phenomenal for this team. But there are two things that concern us. That is cap space, as you are probably well aware of, and the fact that you are going to be 34. And the reason why we bring up your age, even though there are players in this league that play sometimes well into their early 40s, we all know your style of play. You battle down deep. And I'm sure Killorn knows this, and all Lightning fans know this, that guys who play that sort of game down deep, that takes a lot of pounding on your body. If you want an example, look no further than Corey Perry. Look at Patrick Maroon, who has been known to play in front of the net sometimes as well. Those guys still very capable at times to be effective at what they need to do in order to be on this team. Have a lot of miles on them. At times, don't do a good job of moving around as well as you would like, especially Maroon. And I don't want the Lightning to go into this situation with Killorn where they feel like they have to give him whatever he wants. I think I could agree with every Lightning fan where I say that Alex Killorn should be here for the rest of his career. Alex Killorn, if he stays here for the rest of his career, one could make the argument that he will probably get his number retired, especially if he stays somewhat productive. But I still think, what he means to this franchise, especially the last couple of years, outside of Point, Cooch, and Stamkos, and Hedman, and Vasilevsky, has been really one of the guys who has really been able to get this team going, to rally this team around. And that should really be the selling point for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Do you want to go off and make some money? Or do you want to be a franchise? Do you want to stay in Tampa for the rest of your career and be a franchise legend? I firmly believe if he stays in Tampa Bay, he's getting his number retired. He's going to hit the 1,000 game mark, hopefully. I think that's where you got to sell him. And you also got to make it clear to him that your last contract, that was great. That was a phenomenal contract. But that was between you and Steve Yzerman. This is a new age of Tampa Bay hockey. We have Julian Brisebois, as everyone knows. Hate to say it, but you're probably not going to get 4.4 on your next deal. If I and I don't want to sound like a cheapskate, I really don't, because I think, if the salary cap was in a different place for this team, I would say maybe give him something around 3.5, maybe even close back up to 4. Probably like around 4 for 4 would probably be good in my book. But as I've stated on past episodes, we're at a weird situation where the Lightning are still very competitive, where they could still very well win another cup, but they're very depleted with money and with assets, to where they have to start thinking about the future, especially assets where, they got to think about, are we re-signing this guy, especially if he wants too much, if he wants around the same amount of money for 4x4. Is this guy going to be worth $4 million in 2 years? Because that's how we got to look at it. We can't look at this as Alex Killorn being able to put up 25 goals by age 30, 37, 38. We got to look at it as, can he do this by 34, 35? And I really think that's the question that really Julian Brisebois needs to ask himself. Is the investment going to be 100% worth it? Because I don't want there to be a situation where we're rolling out Killorn. We're stuck with this contract. We can't get rid of him, especially because most likely he's going to get a no movement clause in there. I mean, why not? He has to. He's going to. He's definitely going to request that. But we can't have this situation where basically he's going out there and he's not being productive. I really think that, especially in the next 2 years, I think that's when we're going to start to see the wear and tear really come to the surface, which is why, if I'm Julian Brisebois, if I'm the GM of this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I'm giving him 3x3. Maybe 3x3.5. And this is just off the initial, not even thinking about bringing back Colton, not even bringing back Cole. 3x3, maybe even 3x2.5 or 4x2.5. If he wants more of a longer contract, he's going to have to sacrifice some money. And let me know in the comments below what you think. Maybe I'm being a little cheap here, but I think at the end of the day, I think if Killorn wants to be back in Tampa Bay, especially for the rest of his career, he's going to have to sacrifice some money. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Like I said, if the salary cap was a little different, maybe he's going to have to he's going to have to sacrifice some money. So we'll continue to look at this conversation and examine the conversation, all the interesting rumors that may or may not come out in the next couple of weeks, or especially over the summer. And we'll talk about that as we go along. But first, I want to talk about our last sponsor of the day, and that's our new friends over at Birddogs. Now, if you haven't heard of Birddogs, these are the premier brand when it comes to fit, comfort, and versatility when it comes to pants, shorts, whatever. I mean, listen, I love these pants. Summer is coming up. Gotta look good, gotta look sleek. And these shorts, not only are they have great fabric, but they are stretchy and they're breathable. So here, I'm up in New York, so the humidity is going to be insane. Down in Florida as well. And you definitely want to feel good and you definitely want to look good. They give me the freedom to wear one pair of shorts, pants on the golf course when I go. I'm going to go golfing like crazy this summer, or to a meeting or out with friends. It doesn't matter. They're for every occasion. Now, listen, everybody wears these, and you got to wear them too. So go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl. When you enter the promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Once again, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, and when you enter the promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. So wrapping things up on the show, let me know in the comments below what you think. These last couple of episodes have been very interesting. You know, it's been one of those things where I think when I was about to begin, when we were talking about Braden Point, when I was kind of going down the pecking order of who I was going to start talking about, I wanted to talk about Jeannot and Killorn very early on, especially back to back, for a specific reason. Because one, I think these are going to be the two big talking points that will be looming over the Lightning all summer, especially going into the upcoming season, especially if they decide to re-sign Killorn. And like I've said, as soon as the playoffs end it, and I firmly believe this, I think that what happens with Killorn definitely will have a trickle-down effect, a domino effect, of to what kind of moves will be made in the offseason with this Lightning team. If Killorn gets a little bit more money than we probably would have expected, chances are that means Colton's out the door. Kiepke's going to come up to the NHL level. And really, you know, as much talk as there is about Jeannot and what he has to do this upcoming season, I think there'll be just as much talk about Killorn, especially if he's making a lot of money, because he's going to have to legitimize that. You know, he's going to have to come out and really put up this production consistently, especially if the Lightning are going to be continuing to be up against the salary cap. If he's not coming to the table and producing, and he's making close to $4 million a year for the next 4 years, or whatever number we could throw out there, it's definitely going to be talked about. And I'm very curious to see how that pressure could affect him, especially as his career starts to kind of come to a close. But at the same time, I think it's the best move for the Lightning. You know what you're getting from him right away. You have a guy who knows the system, who knows everybody. He knows the environment. He continues to play here. He will be a Lightning legend. There's no doubt about that. I firmly believe he will have his number retired, and he will hit the thousand game mark. So there's a lot of things that the Lightning could throw at him that will be sexy in terms of, you know, why he should come back instead of, you know, not coming back for money. So let me know in the comments below, like I said, what you think about that. What you think about Killorn. Is it time to maybe let him go? Let him go somewhere off and make his money? Or should we bring this guy back? But like I said, both sides have to play. It can't just be the Lightning bending over backwards, giving him whatever he wants. Because then in the end, they put themselves in a very, very awkward situation, especially if they need to go out and acquire help, as it seems like they always need to do at the trade deadline. So join us tomorrow. Not sure yet as to who we'll be having as our player review topic, but tune in as always. And in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Tanker.